Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Rules of Engagement. As always, I'll be your host, Nick, axslav, ranish, as we explore tactics and strategies using the game of Starcraft 2. Today, for our episode, we're going to take a look at a couple of games from last week's Group A match in the WCS America Premier League, Round of 32. We're first going to take a look at a live versus killer game and talk about some key concepts in Terran versus Zerg and Zerg versus Terran. Then we're going to talk about how to master late game TvZ with hero and killer, and then also the importance of map vision in a live versus major. Of course, after these three segments, it's going to be the viewer Q&A. So submit your questions to me on Twitter at @ISAxslav, or of course also in the YouTube comments under the most recent Rules of Engagement YouTube video. Also remember, if I miss your question, just tune into the next day, or of course catch a YouTube video of the next day, as I'll probably answer it a day later. Sometimes I can't catch all the questions immediately. So on to our first topic is going to be key ZVT concepts with the live versus killer. We're first going to talk about low risk, high reward mind games. Then we're going to talk about the mindset you should have when you're ahead in the game, and then also a couple key things you have to keep in mind if you're a Zerg player and you want to transition to a high-tech army. So we're going to jump in this replay at the 6-minute mark. And the first thing I want to talk about is from the Zerg point of view, a low-risk, high-reward mind game. So there's all kinds of mind games you can do to your opponent. A great example that's underused for a different matchup would be Protoss players against Terran, if they know, let's say, the Terran has the watchtower in the middle, using hallucination and showing them a couple Templar and then running away, or showing them a couple of Colossi and running away, forcing them to get either Vikings or Ghosts, when really the tech you show them with hallucination is not the tech you're actually going for. So that's kind of like the risk is only losing some sentry energy, and the reward can be potentially huge. So again, another example of one of those type of things is in this game Killer. He wants to make a wall in front of his natural because, of course, with the build he's doing, he doesn't want to have to get too many speedings because he's getting a lot of gases very fast in the game and teching very fast. So he doesn't have a whole ton of extra economy or larva to produce a lot of speedlings. He wants to make a wall to defend against potential Helling run-bys. Now, in his wall, he's building an Evolution Chamber and a Roach Warren with no intention of using either one of those in the very, very near future, just for walling purposes. Now, of course, the Roach Warren is more expensive than it would be to get 2 Evolution Chambers, right? It costs you a little bit extra minerals. That's the risk or the cost of this mind game. The advantage is that when your opponent alive, if he comes up to scout this or whatever, either one, he sees the Roach Warren, he's going to think about roaches. He's not going to think about the Mulus. Additionally, Killer makes a single roach here that's going to help give away the idea that he's going roaches. Now, of course, the disadvantage is it costs a little bit extra. And you could say, well, you know what? I could just, what if he scans my main base? Well, that's why you also put the Spire in a location that's unlikely to be scanned. So combine all these things, and it's a great little mind game you can play, as you see from Live's point of view. He scans the lair, and if he happened to poke up this ramp, he would have seen a Roach Warren. Even if he didn't, he just saw a Roach. Where was it? He saw a Roach kill his engineering bay. In fact, this engineering bay he built here was killed by Roach. So he sees roaches. He knows lair tech. He's thinking, okay, I gotta be ready for a speed Roach 2-base timing. We've seen Snoot do these a couple times. Moonglade does them on 3 bases, but the draw idea is there are 2-base lair Roach builds that Terrans have to react to, and just a small change like that, a small investment getting the Roach Warren and building that single Roach, and of course showing it at the watchtower as well as killing the eBay, can convince your opponent the main threat is roaches from the front, when really the main threat is these Mulus coming into main. And as we can see here, if you look at units killed at the beginning of the harass at 0, as he comes in here, gets several SCVs up to 7 already, and now he has total map control. And he can even save the Overlords to help the creeping spread. His opponent has to be in a defensive posture. 7 SCVs isn't a huge amount, but it's a lot better than you would have gotten. Of course, if they knew you had Mulus, they would have a missile turret ready, and you wouldn't be at too much damage. And even additionally, he's able to get some mines here, because most of the Marines are having to defend locations that ideally missile turrets would defend. So, great play by Killer there, a really clever use of mind games. And now at this point, it's pretty safe to say he's ahead, right? He has a 3rd base decently saturated. I mean, it's not fully saturated, but compared to a Terran who's only on 2 bases, no 3rd yet set up. A 4th base of his is on the way. He has pretty much total map control with his Mulus play. He's got a decent work advantage as well. A little bit behind in upgrades. Alive's 1-1, but his armory's slowed, so not too far behind in upgrades either. So overall, Killer's ahead. Now this is where it's important to have the correct mindset. When you know you're ahead, the general goal to maintain your advantage is always to deny your opponent's expansion. Now, of course, there's several ways to do this. One is by direct attack. Anytime you take your third base, you just go in and you run it over. And for that, of course, he'd want to wait for the speed upgrade to finish as well as 1-1. And he could just go for a ton of units and do a mass attack at this third base. Another way to deny your opponent's the third base, of course, is by not doing a massive attack at their third, but by constantly counterattacking the third while attacking the main and just taking advantage of the fact your opponent might not have too many units, so they can't protect all the areas very well. And then, of course, the last way to take advantage of denying your opponent's third base is if you realize, okay, I'm stronger than him, but his defensive setup is too strong, I can't break it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play very greedy. I'm going to make some extra drones, take an extra base, attack the hive, and then he's going to have to move out to fight me because I'm doing these greedy things. And then I can beat his army in the open. Once I crush his army in the open, then I can run in and kill the third base. Now, killer, of course, because his opponent has a great defense here. And of course, this base, he can do some run-bys. But given the architecture whirlwind, it's not that easy to deny the third base because you have to go up these ramps, which can be difficult if your opponent has good defense. So while he's going to try to be annoying with the counterattacks, the real way he's going to deny the third base on whirlwind is that third tactical option of by being pretty greedy, going straight to hive, getting to fourth base, going up to 8 gases, and making all these semi-greedy decisions. It is not actually that greedy. He's going to force that live to come out, and in a situation where killer's ahead, that's how he can get that army trade that he wants and then follow through to deny his opponent's third base. So this is exactly the type of style that he's using to deny his opponent's thirds, by forcing his opponent to leave the defensible positions and fight him on the field. And then, of course, with mass, or is he more from these banelings? Keeps moving around me. With all these mass speed banelings, as long as he fights on creep, he should be in a great position. Now, unfortunately, the one disadvantage he has is that he doesn't have great creep spread in this area, which is the nature of the fact he techs so fast, and maybe he should have gotten a few more queens. Without the great creep spread, a couple of huge widow mines just kill all the banelings, and his whole advantage just falls apart there. But the key thing to note is that it wasn't the setup wasn't a mistake by killer. What was the mistake is just micro against the widow mines wasn't 100% perfect. So everything was done well, except unfortunately didn't realize exactly where all the widow mines were, missed micro to slide them out, and now his advantage is greatly diminished because the whole goal of that was to squash this army completely and annihilate it, and then follow through and deny the Terran's third, or at the very least follow through and have no pressure on him for the next couple minutes where he can really utilize all this tech he's getting. So unfortunately it didn't work out, but the important thing to realize is if you're analyzing this game from killer's perspective, it wasn't, the tactics were great. Forcing his opponent to come to him was great. He had the advantage that he could have squashed that army. It was just, you know, sometimes you miss micro a little bit against widow mines. Happens to everyone. They're can be pretty scary units, and then you can give up a lot of your advantage. So now killer, of course, is not light years ahead, or not. He's not significantly ahead, but he's still in a great position because he didn't lose that battle by enough to actually lose the base. He just lost some of the map control. Now going forward, we can see he's going to do something which is transitioning to a hive tech composition. And this is what's really important, is that before this he said mulus, speedings, and banings, right? And if we talk about the bases he has to defend, let me actually just bring him up in. Oops. Yeah. Talk about the bases he has to defend from killer's point of view, right? He wants to defend this section of the map pretty much, right? This is the section of the map he's trying to defend. Is this whole top right area, right? And so, if he's using an army to defend that, the speeding, baiting, mulus army is not insanely cost efficient against a Terran by a Widowmine army. So you really want to put all your money into your army with that composition so you can make sure you can win those battles. And the advantage is you can have your army right here, and of course you can move back and forth very easily to anywhere in that zone you need to defend. You get back and forth. You're very fast. You can run down medevacs once their turbo boost wears away. And it's a pretty good way to defend. But as you transition to a high-tech army, Ultralists, Infestors, or even to a higher degree, Broodlords, this makes your main army much, much less mobile. So what happens is, instead of being able to run back and forth across the whole area, you really kind of can only run back and forth in a much smaller area. You're pretty much limited to a zone that's looking more like this zone, right? And being able to keep up with the army. You don't have the same, breadth of movement there. But your army's more cost efficient with Infestors and Ultras. So you have to realize, okay, more cost efficient army. What that means is I can spend more money on static defense and still win the battles. And also, because I'm less mobile, I can't cover these areas over here and this area up here. That's where I should put my stack defense. It supplements mobility, and I have a little bit of extra money because I'm much, much more cost efficient. So very important. This determines so many Zerg vs. Terran games, and in fact, it actually determines this one. We're about to see how. As you transition to Hive Tech, once your Ultralists are in production, as soon as you start those guys, start blending to stack defense in the corners of your regions that it's hard to get Ultralists to. Those corners are very, very important to cover, so you can focus your main army in the middle of the map and control the middle of the map where their main army can go with your Hive Tech army. Stack defense, maybe a few speedings can help protect the corners. So we can see as you actually get into the map, this is at the point where Killer's at right now. He's building these Ultras. He's starting his upgrades. And ideally, you know, maybe as soon as he gets a little bit of extra money on top of this, his next money should be spent on Infestors to help the Ultras be more efficient. And then the minerals can be spent on some stack defense. Because as he loses his Mulists and Banelings, and he doesn't want to, I mean, sometimes you want to replace him, but often ideally you just get more Ultralists and Infestors, he'll lose the ability to stop drops like he just did over here. And so that's where he needs to start supplementing his defense. You know, 2 spines, maybe get a 3rd spine in a Spore. Over here, get a couple spines in a Spores, and so you're not spread out too far. That's exactly what he's doing, right? He's getting to 2 spine cores. I like to see a Spore core there as well, and then maybe a spine or 2 even to cover this ramp. It'll help slow down a frontal attack. And yes, it's expensive, but if you have the capability to have all your Ultralists and all your Infestors in the actual fight where you want them to be, all of a sudden, you actually don't need as much money because your composition is much, much, much more effective. So as we go forward here, we can see he's done that a little bit, getting some stack defense. Supplementing with some Ultras here. Hopefully you'll remember those when the army comes out. Because right now, ideally, he wouldn't have to have these Ultralists or anything like this defending. He could just have all his army in this zone in the middle here, denying the Terran army map control in the middle. And then, if he has enough stack defense, he can even feel brave enough to go ahead and start attacking the 3rd base of the Terran without worrying about getting into a base race. So you fast forward just a second, we can see how important that stack defense is, as because he's worried about the drop play over here, right? His Ultra just had to cover this. There was no Spore Caller there. All of a sudden, his whole army isn't in position to deny a Terran from controlling the middle. When he gets to the middle, he tries to regroup, right? Now all of a sudden, yes, he can deal with the middle, but because there was no Spore Cores, this drop is extremely, extremely annoying. And yes, he can go back and deal with this, but then there's another drop coming over here, and this is going to be an equally annoying drop, right? And again, this is where ideally you'd have 1 or 2 Spore Cores. They can't entirely stop this 4 medevac drop, but investing a little more in the stack defense, it will slow it down, and it can punish the drop enough that you can then defeat it with some rallied speedlings or a couple of banelings. And meanwhile, your main army doesn't have to be scrambling to defend. Instead, it could be scrambling to control the middle. And so these attacks right here, they never happen if your army is always controlling the middle of the map and in your opponent's face. And if it's not, what happens is all of a sudden your opponent's drops get too much. You realize that going back to defend him is just plugging up. It's like bailing water out of a leaking ship, right? It's not going to stop the leaker. It's going to die a little bit slower. And then you get stuck in the base trade. And the base trade, of course, even if you have a great army, Terran can always fight at very defensive positions. They can lift their buildings over here, so you might get the SCVs, but you're not going to really kill their economy too badly, and you're going to fall apart and lose the game. That's exactly what happens here, right? He lost the base over here. He's taking some damage in the main. He's going to lose this hatchery as well momentarily, and then he's down to no economy. Whereas a Terran player, of course, even if he kills all these SCVs here, just lifting the orbital is a quick solution to that, right? And same thing over here. You can cancel and then just land the orbitals. But I mean, it's something everyone knows, right? You never want to base trade Terran. So the general idea there is, as you tech the Hive, very important to get that stack defense. Kind of recap a couple of these key Zerg vs. Terran concepts. The most important thing, of course, is as you open the game, think about, analyze your strategic decisions on how much does it cost me to do a decision that might fool my opponent. The Roach Warren is an extra 100 minerals. Is it worth it for the chance to, you know, like maybe it only works 1 out of 4 times. But that 1 out of 4 times, you get 8 SCV kills. That's enough of a, even if, you know, you divide that by 4, the expected return on that is still positive. So there's some really good mind game moves you can do. Try to mix them in. Of course, if you play the same game many times in a row, maybe you don't do it every time. But try to learn how to analyze those decisions so if you know if they're correct. Say, okay, if I can trick him and he doesn't know meters are coming, it's worth X much. The investment is only a small fraction of X. It doesn't have to pay off every time to make it worth it. Then as you go further in the game, if you get an advantage, understand what your advantage is, right? In this case, the advantage that Killer had after that Mulis Ras was he had map control, and he had a potential to have a stronger army if he wanted to morph in a lot of speed banings, because he had the extra larva and expansions over his opponent. So once you notice your advantage is a potential military advantage, you can say, okay, I should use it to deny my opponent's third base. 3 ways to do that. Well, no matter what, I have to get through his army. So unless he just mispositions. So I can either try to split his army up by attacking multiple locations. Well, that time, he had great missile turret defense. I couldn't split it up too much, so let's not do that. Mass frontal assault, that can often work, but on those ramps on Whirlwind, mass frontal assaults can be pretty tricky getting up against Widow Mines charging up a ramp. Then, of course, a third attack, play on the greedy end to force him to come to you. Then you smash his army, and then you kill a third base. That's exactly what Kill did, which was the right call. Unfortunately, lost like 20 Balians to one Widow Mine there, and that kind of turned the battle around. And then, of course, when you get to the end of a game in Zerg vs. Tyrann, when you go to Hive Tech, make sure you can keep all your army together in Festers and Ultralists, and they'll fight much more efficiently with Fungals. To keep your army together, you need to make sure that you never need to send Ultralists or Infestors to deal with drop play. Stack defense really helps that, because if you have the Spore Cores shoot the Medivacs, the Speedings can deal with the Marines much, much, much more easy. This wraps up the analysis on our first segment. We'll take a short break and be right on to segment number 2.